A crowd has gathered on a cloudy day in Paris to witness what is happening at the Canal Saint-Martin. Everybody else just cannot take their gaze away from the action in front of them. As the officials drained the river, they all were looking forward to seeing how the shallow waters fade. What had been lurking all along in the canal's waters? They found things about the canal that they had not foreseen after 2 centuries. What did they find down there exactly? But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. As the murky waters receded, the officials assessed them. It's not very often that the unanswered questions of the ocean's deepest part are unearthed. The canal is 4.5 kilometers in length. After Napoleon Bonaparte authorized the project, it was completed. This canal was built mainly to provide safe drinking water to the 550,000 people who live in Paris. Even so, he has been well aware that the population will almost probably start to increase in the near future. He also dared to hope that having safe drinking water would aid the city's health problems. The Canal Saint-Martin runs for nearly 3 miles through the city. At the time, it also delivered food and construction materials to Parisians all around the city. 2 canals were built for much the same motive in the following decades. The officials were building the Canal Saint-Denis and the Canal de l'Ourcq. The latter measured 3.4 meters in width and 108 kilometers in length. It ran from Port-au-Perches to the Bassin de la Villette, connecting the Canal Saint-Martin and the Bassin de la Villette. It's important to remember that all of them are hundreds of years old. The Canal Saint-Martin is the most well-known of the 3. From the Bassin de l'Arsenal to the Place de la Bastille, it ran deep in the ground. Numerous people are familiar with the latter as pivotal events during the French Revolution, which took place from 1789 to 1799. An unanticipated prison attack occurred here. It has a long and fruitful past, as you can see. For this specific purpose, people were interested to see what lay beneath the ground. Both for locals and tourists, the canal has now become a popular tourist destination. Young Parisians congregate quite often along the banks of the Seine and in neighboring cafes. So, why did the authorities begin by draining the water? The canal has undergone many changes in its 2 centuries of creation. Every 10 to 15 years, officials try to empty it. Everything that had built up at the bottom was going to be cleared out. It was not, that being said, a regular cleanup. So what is it about this period of time that was so distinctive? Paris hides a slew of important secrets. The deep waters of this canal obscured some of them. What lay just below their adored Canal Saint-Martin caught the interest of Parisians. From afar, the draining operation was being observed. If they went, what would they find out? The canal had been drained for the first time in 2001. They have been able to eliminate over 40 tons of waste from the water at the time. Bullets, bombshells, as well as gold dimes from World War I were among the fascinating finds. Furthermore, they discovered a car from the same era. It's been a long time since that happened. What else could they come across in the water? The massive challenge of draining the canal got underway. It would take 3 months to remove approximately 3 million cubic feet of water. Even though the city had to splurge more than $10 million on it, it was required. What had been concealed in the canal for so long piqued the audience's interest. On January 7th, they emptied the canal's excess water. The secrets of the waterway were finally revealed after 15 years. People from all walks of life flocked to the bridges. They wanted to investigate what the officials had found out. Everyone was dying of curiosity. It had to be a huge occasion. And besides, it's not very often that the Canal Saint-Martin is completely dry. When people saw what was going on, they couldn't believe their eyes. The canal's bottom was strange to see. They were all interested in learning more about what was beneath the canal's surface. The workers were given the task of emptying the canal to a depth of 50 centimeters. They waded through the canal, looking for objects and living things that had made themselves at home there. The working crew caught around 5 tons of carp, trout, and bream. The fish were then relocated to more suitable breeding grounds. They carefully weighed and identified the fish before relocating it. Even if the new location wasn't ideal, it was still preferable to the alternative. Several everyday objects found their way into the water's depths. Bicycles, among other things, were present. They were later discovered to be part of the city's Velib car-sharing system. In 2007, the program added about 14,500 bicycles to the city's streets. Regrettably, they were thrust into unusual circumstances. More items started to emerge as the drains process progressed. At the canal's bottom, there were mopeds, bicycles, and wheelie bins. There was a toilet down there as well. Because it had undoubtedly contributed to the canal's murkiness, it was crucial to its recovery. It was thought that having it there would be amusing. This was far from the only surprise down there. At the bottom, larger objects were discovered. "It's like some weird submarine treasure," a witness Mark told The Guardian. "I can't believe the number of Velibs there," he continued. "I'm guessing they were stolen and then thrown in. It's strange." Bicycles were far from the only unusual items to make it to the bottom. Wait until you hear that they also managed to recover a pair of motorcycles from down there if you thought bicycles were shocking. Who knows how those objects ended up there? We're hoping for a witness to come forward and tell us what actually occurred. From there, things have only gotten weirder and weirder. Of course, they didn't find only alive creatures as well as bizarre objects down there. It was anticipated that some items would be found. Shopping bags, traffic cones, and glass bottles are all examples. These findings seem to pique no one's interest. Everyone was ecstatic to discuss the unusual items. To start with, none of them knew how an office chair had come to be there. As they continued to drain the water, another interesting item emerged from beneath the murkiness. At the canal's bottom, they discovered a revolting suitcase. Is it there because it was tossed there? On the Canal Saint-Martin floor, there is also a shopping cart. As a result, people's attention in the story was piqued. After loading their bags, did a shopper accidentally push their car into the canal? In any case, we can state unequivocally that Paris is an excellent shopping destination. Workers continued to drain the water from the Canal Saint-Martin until there were only 20 inches left. They needed to get the fish to safety first and foremost. For 3 days in the water, the cleanup crew fished for carp, trout, and bream. The creatures were apprehended and relocated to a different section of the river. Even after how saddening it was to see so much waste in the canal, there is reason to be hopeful. The findings shed light on the city's littering problem. Authorities took advantage of the opportunity to discuss the situation. If everyone mucks in and avoids throwing anything into the water, Celia Blowell told Mail Online, we might be able to swim in the canal in a few years. Nobody would have discovered how serious the situation was if the waterway would not have been drained. In fact, the canal area is considered prime real estate. The Parisians paid a high price for it. Only real estate near the arrondissement commands prices of up to $9,000 per square foot. They had no idea these things were so close to their homes, we're sure. The waterway has often appeared lush and attractive, which contributes to the property's high value. Several artists have cited it as a source of inspiration. The bank's walls are covered in street art, and the organization has a large multimedia space dedicated to art. If you've ever visited Paris, you're probably aware of the vibrant nightlife scene in the Canal Saint-Martin area. The neighborhood, which was once quiet, would now attract a lot of young people. Many people would assume that this would immediately add to the amount of waste in the canal. They discovered if this was the case in 2016. In 1702, Napoleon I ordered the construction of the Canal Saint-Martin to provide fresh water to Paris, aiming to improve the health of its growing population of around 550,000. The canal begins at the Bassin de l'Arsenal on the Seine, near the former Bastille prison, which was burned down during the French Revolution. It then winds through Place de la République before reaching the Bassin de la Villette in the north, where it connects to the Canal de l'Ourcq. Stretching 3 miles, the Canal Saint-Martin runs through Paris's 10th arrondissement, a lively area known for its nightlife and attractions. Every 10 to 15 years, the canal is drained and cleaned, revealing an astonishing assortment of discarded items. These cleanings draw large crowds, eager to witness the unusual objects uncovered from the canal's murky depths. During one such cleaning, workers found an array of objects, including chairs, shopping carts, suitcases, trash cans, bicycles, and motorcycles. Surprisingly, a vintage stereo and hundreds of thousands of bottles and cans were also retrieved. These discoveries not only highlight the amount of waste accumulated, but also raise questions about how such items ended up at the bottom of the canal. Some finds are particularly intriguing, such as a vintage camera discovered despite regular cleanings. Sentimental objects, like a stuffed animal in pristine condition, contrast sharply with the grimy, moss-covered items around it, sparking curiosity about the stories behind these items. The image of a muddy chair or a rusted motorcycle often leaves onlookers imagining the circumstances that led to their disposal. The canal's periodic cleanings offer a fascinating glimpse into Parisian history and life, making it a spectacle that continues to intrigue both locals and visitors. As the water is slowly drained into the Seine, workers must spend hours ensuring that everything goes according to plan. There's a lot to do, from relocating fish entangled in the canal to completely renovating the canal's 4 double locks. The entire procedure would take about 3 months from start to finish. Because it's such a massive task, it should be expected that a large number of people will be involved in its completion. Hundreds, if not thousands, of workers are tasked with ensuring that everything is done effectively and accurately, as shown in the photo. Considering what we're seeing in the Parisian Canal every decade or so, it's reasonable to assume that other countries clean out their water sources and drains on a regular basis. Many strange things have been discovered in drains and pipes in the United Kingdom. In fact, there are a few things you wouldn't expect to find in such a place. In fact, the sewers hold more fortune than we realize. In 2012, Aaron Large, an English drain technician, discovered 4 luxury watches in the drains. They weren't your average timepieces. A few days later, he discovered an 18-karat gold Rolex Oyster Perpetual Cosmograph worth £21,000, as well as another Rolex and 2 more valuable items. One of the watches was eventually traced to its rightful owner, but the other 3 were discovered to be fakes. Despite this, Aaron's employer rewarded him for his efforts with a bonus. Understandably, some items discovered in sewers cannot be identified, no matter how much time is spent examining and studying them. In the case of the mysterious jawbone discovered in a Canadian sewer in 2009, this was the case. The bone could have come from any number of herbivorous creatures. Bone discoveries in Canada aren't as surprising because the country has a higher than average distribution of dinosaur skeletons. Finding a bone in a tunnel that has been completed, on the other hand, is unusual.